And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my first live stream on YouTube. I got a couple of questions last week when I asked if I were to do a live stream, what would you guys want to see me cover? And there was a couple of questions regarding composing with synths, layering, sound design, and percussion. So I thought we'd do a session today on that. So what I want to do is I want to open up a couple of sessions, show you little bits and pieces, also some sounds I use. But I think most importantly, my approach to composition with these elements, where, and my way of writing with these elements. So let's have a look. So the first thing I want to show you is a tangent underscore track. And in this track, we're going to talk a little bit about synths. And then second track, we're going to focus more on percussion. Third track, also synths, but in a different context. And then we can talk about anything else you guys want to talk about. So yeah, good to see you. Let me know if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and let's get going. So this is the first track. As you see, I name all of my groups and my tracks with the sounds I use as well. So keeps it organized and things like that. So let's have a listen to the track and then we'll analyze some of the synth stuff. So here we go. So that's the first track. Hey everyone, we got more people now. Very cool. So let's focus on the synth here. So I recently acquired the Keep Forest Devastator, and it quickly became one of my favorite things. Not just for synths, for percussion, for bass, for pulses, sound design. Although to be honest, I've been using sound design part the least. I've been using it a lot for synths and for percussion, and you'll see in a couple of examples today why. So let me just mute the synths group, and we're gonna play this last part of the track here, just the synths. Let's add the bass. So what's going on here? So you can hear that there's a couple of elements. So let me just start out by saying that when I write, specific instruments or sections, I tend to write in a way that if the music supervisor or an editor decides to use just one section, just the synths, for example, they can, and that section is gonna stand on its own feet. So, for example, if we just listen to the bass and the synths, they work here. So when writing for any section, I take into consideration two dimensions, if you will. One is the time dimension, where I position elements rhythmically so that they together fill voids and they don't all play at the same time necessarily. And then vertically, which is the frequency, which is the more common, which is basically means you are spreading your instruments throughout the frequency range. So you have lower, you have mid, and you have high. So if we listen to the first one here, so this would be the high, this would be mid, and this one is very soft, but I added it to add a little bit of motion. You can hear it's automated. I mostly automate almost all of my synth tracks, and I use sound toys as well. They just sound phenomenal, especially Echo Boy and Filter Freak. I mostly use Filter Freak for percussion when I need to have it pumping and things like that, but I use Echo Boy all the time for the synths. Either that or Replica XT by Native Instruments, or just a built-in stereo delay from Logic. Those are my go-to delays, in case you're wondering. So yeah, so that's the first one. Let's see. So when I use Serum, I use a couple of synths. Like I mentioned, I've been using Keep Forest Devastator for a lot of the synthy stuff, and the reason why is because if I just let me just open this up, and you can hear. So I always make custom rhythms. And you can hear, so you have the rhythm section, you have the filter. Although I didn't use filter on this one. But if we just listen without the EQ and the Simplon, which is the Fab filter that I use to automate filters. It's much more aggressive because Keep Force Devastator is primarily aimed towards the trailer music, but I didn't want to do that. I needed something gentler, but with the same kind of character. So first thing I did, I EQ'd it out. Also because I have this higher end thing here. And some Echo Boy. So that's one. I was talking about Serum. Serum is my go-to synth for designing custom sounds, for designing precise custom sounds. And this is because it has phenomenal bass level sounds where you can then automate and do things like that. I use mostly LFOs, although I didn't use it on this one. Yeah, this is not the best. You'll see in the third examples we're gonna do. There's gonna be more of custom Serum stuff there. So, and then I also use Omnisphere, but I didn't use it on this one except for the bass. And on the bass, what I did is I added the LFO tool to make it pump a little bit. So LFO tool, if you don't know it, it's basically rhythmic automation of volume or filter. So if I turn on the metronome, so So let me just add the synths back in. You hear that pumping. And talking about the sections being able to stand on their own feet, so if I just have the percussion and the bass, that also works. Okay, so and then of course I always add some transitional elements. In this case I use Serum again, and I often use Serum for custom design for risers and whatnot. I would often use just the noise aspect of it, and then I shape it so it comes in at the right time where I want it to. So like that. This way I have the full control over the decay of the sound and the attack and the, you know, the timbre of it and the color. So if I needed to, that way it's not too bright, and also it doesn't, you know, doesn't get into the percussion territory, which is not too low either. So it just fits right in the middle. So that's that. Yeah, are there any questions on this track? Let me see. Wavetables. I think we're gonna cover which wavetables I'm using in Serum in the third example. Yeah, we're gonna cover that in the third one. Wavetables, what I tend to do with wavetable is I modulate the movement throughout the wavetable, but you have to be really careful if you want to make it subtle, because wavetables in Serum can range very drastically from very gentle to extremely very harsh. So I have to, but you'll see that in the third example. So let's go on to the second track, which is we're gonna have a look at some of my percussion things that I do. So this is an underscore track as well, but this one has a lot more things going on in the percussion section, but the same aspect applies, where I write for just the percussion section. I try to fill out the whole frequency range as well, but even more importantly, in the percussion section, it's the rhythmical juxtaposition of elements against each other. So let's just have a listen to the track first, and then we'll go to the last section and just work through the percussion. So this is the second track. you can see that it's much fuller than the first one. It's much more aggressive, mostly because of the percussion. There's a lot more going on with the percussion section. So there's a couple of things that I used here. I mostly use the Strike Force from Laboratory Audio. There's not all of it is super useful, to be honest, but there's like 3 or 4 patches in there that are just incredible, and you can see which ones those are because I named my track like that. So and then there's some noise stuff going on here. So if we just listen to the percussion section, here we go. Hey Oscar, how's it going? Question: do you normally set a template of sounds before composing a track like this, or do you keep searching and making sounds on the go? I'm usually writing several tracks for an album, or the whole album, like in this case. So what I tend to do is I start with a set of sounds that I like, and then I adapt them because depending on your musical ideas, you need to adapt your palette a little bit. But when you're writing like a Tangent underscore album, there is always a set amount of sounds that are gonna be, because especially when you're writing an album, or a longer piece of music, if you're writing for a film, you want to have the sound be consistent, especially if it's like a public album release, because then it's much more noticeable. Because if it's for the industry, then tracks are being pitched individually. It's not super important, but it's still nice to give the publisher a finished product where it's like a very consistent sound. And my partner Timothy William, who produces all my stuff, he's exceptionally good. He has, and this is not even mixed, by the way. What we're looking at, these are not mixed versions of the project or mastered. He gets the sound exactly right, and I don't no idea how he does it, but big props to Timothy. I couldn't do any of this without him. So when he puts his fingers onto this stuff, it just comes out amazing. It's much clearer, it's much more defined, it's much better mixed, obviously. But in terms of writing, I just usually start with a set of sounds, 10 to 15 max, because I know that there's always going to be something that I'll have to add to the palette as I go from track to track, because if a track is going to be faster, you want to probably have more plucky sounds. If it's going to be slower, you'll have more pads and things like that. So you can't always put together a ultimate template for the project, because you don't know what your next musical idea is going to be. But in this case, percussion is pretty set, and I always tend to go to the same instruments, to the same libraries, to the same sounds, more or less. So in this case, it's the Strike Force again, Audio Imperial Decimator, Strike Force again, and then the Devastator from Keep Forest for a couple of things. And I just want to show you. So let's just take like individual, and you'll see. First thing you might have noticed is that the percussion section, if you just listen to the percussion section, it plays the melodic line. It plays the melody, but it's with its own instruments selection. So if we select I think this is the melody. Right, and even if we just listen to the synths, you can hear the counterpoint. So you have the main melody, and then you have the counterpoint, which is this section here. And the counterpoint, or question and answer, depends how you phrase it. But we can hear that the drums reflect the melody. during the answer phase, I don't play too much. You want to have, some parts where you leave things breathing. Hey, Timothy, he's there. Nice. And let's just listen to the percussion itself. And if we go track by track, you can hear the dynamics. Right, and then we have the decimator. And I cannot tell you how much time I spend figuring out exactly what is going to be played by each individual sound. It's so important because, like I said, I tend to write in sections where I write in a way that the section can stand on its own 2 feet. Even if the editor just wants to use the the percussion and the bass, they can do that, and it's going to work. Or with the strings. Right. Where were we? So these 3. So this third one, which is also a decimator track, keeps the momentum going. So it's something steady, because if you just listen just to the first one, you don't exactly get the kind of get it, but the third one really solidifies the rhythm. And again, it has its own timbre. It doesn't fight with the other 2. I don't do any EQing on these necessarily. I don't think so. No, because I leave that to Timothy, and he does his stuff on his end. Then some higher percussion, higher drums, some booms. Some also always have the fade-ins and things like that. And then let's go to the noise percussion. Let's just listen to these ones. Okay, so let's listen to this one. You can hear it if you're wearing headphones or you're listening on studio monitors. You can hear the thing moving around. And this is the Keep Forest Devastator again. And the thing that with it is that you can program the panning as well as the rhythm. So if we go to pan, you can see it's slightly moving from left to right. Right. And then this is the section that controls the volume. And I didn't use filter on this one. It's programmed, but I didn't turn it on because, yeah, it was busy enough as it was. And then this one is just filtered noise percussion. And this is just 4 steps here. And on this one, I did use the filter a little bit. So I used the filter and the step sequencer to shape the sound as well, not just for the rhythm, but especially filter for shaping the sound as well. So if we listen to the higher stuff, which is this one. So you notice that there's no loops. I perform everything. I perform every single note. I never use loops. So you notice how different this phrase is and how different it is when I turn the whole percussion on. This is another section that comes in here. No, I don't add reverb. Timothy does that. I If it's a built-in reverb and I cannot take it away, then sometimes you cannot. Like the Strikeforce library has a built-in reverb, even and its dry setting. It's super wet still, so you can't take that away. So I just have to then make the other sounds work with it. Yeah. So that's the percussion section. So let's just then the strings. I always write. Let's just listen to the strings. I usually use the strings to make the last section of the track evolve, to bring it to the emotional height. Yeah, so I use CSS spiccato, CSS full ensemble, and then for the lower strings I use the orchestral tools Inspire, combination of cello and basses in octaves in legato, so that fills it out. Yeah, so even if you listen to the string section itself, it works. So if the editor wants to use just the last part of the track, just the strings. Or they want to use just the effects, just the booms, that'll also work, with the strings. Yeah, so that's the second one. And are there any questions on this track here? I always, because I write mostly for film and TV, I always make sure that there's breaks in the sections, so it's easy for the editors to pick the sections they want to use. So I always leave space for, between different sections. So yeah, hope that makes sense. Low strings patch. No, it's from a orchestral tools Inspire 1. It's the low strings octave legato, which plays cello and then the bass is one octave down. It's my favorite low strings patch of all time by far. It's just listen to this. Just the legato here, last section. CSS. Almost doesn't sound like it's two completely different libraries, but it is. All right. Let's go to the third track then, which is going to be a surprise. We're going to focus on the synths on that one as well. This is one of the last tracks I've done, even though I'm currently working on another underscore album. I had to do a couple of tracks before this one, and this was a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of writing in this style, but I've learned so much, and it was honestly so much fun to write this. How is everyone doing? It's kind of fun, this live stream thing. I hope you're liking it too. Yeah, Oscar, the low strings are amazing. All right, well, let's see if you can guess like what genre this is. So we have Machine 2 for percussion. We have some massive in there, and we have some vocals there as well. Yeah, everyone's isolated. Yeah, no kidding. Such a weird time. But, make the best of this time. Um, like this track that we're going to play now, this is the genre that I very rarely, almost never write in. So this was like a fun challenge for me to do something, different and learn about the genre. And yeah, just get it out there in the industry for the placements and whatnot. Um, oh, thanks, Akshay. That's awesome. Very kind. Um, let's listen to this. See what you think. And you can see there's a lot of synths here, so we're gonna go through a lot of stuff in this track. But let's just listen first. Yeah, been working on some hip hop. That was a lot of fun to write. Um, Even though hip hop, it's kind of formulaic, if you will. Um, if you add these melodic elements to it, that again can stand on their own feet. It can be a lot more melodic, and you can add your own flavor to it. So you just use the hip hop style beats, and then you do your own thing with it. Let's just listen to the percussion. It's by itself first. This last section. Um, just see. Don't want that. Just percussion. So it's very traditional kind of hip hop pattern where you have the kick and the snare on the usual beats, and then you have hi hats, 16 or 32 notes, and then you have shorter bursts of towards the end of the phrase. Um, yeah, so that's that. There's not a lot going on in the bass. I use Omnisphere 2 a lot for the bass, so I used this, and again I used LFO tool to volume, and then Timothy, I think he does sidechain compression as well, so he adds a little bit of that. I don't do that here because that's more his part, but just to give some motion to the bass as well. Yeah, so it works. It's good enough. Tom, any thoughts on LA scoring strings? I don't know them. Sorry. I use CSS for this kind of stuff and trailer stuff, and I use Berlin strings for the realistic orchestral stuff. Actually, just orchestral tools mostly, and then I use the chamber strings for smaller ensembles more, and then I also use a lot of the British drama toolkit for really like European drama kind of things, where it's just like, felt piano and then a small string section and a clarinet or something like that, and you don't need anything else basically. Yeah, Akshay said the second track had a really dark vibe at times. Yeah, the vibe is determined not by the sound, but you determine it with your harmonic vocabulary. So make sure you have enough of you build enough of harmonic vocabulary to be able to go to these places where you like, you're writing a track and you're like, oh, I would like to make this sound a little bit sinister. You know which devices to go to, which chord shapes, which voicings, because that becomes very important also, and then counterpoint to know the internal voicing movements and things like that just comes in really, really handy, like in the example of the second track that we did. Yeah, so that was bass. Let's move on to the synths. There's a lot going on here, and I just kept layering and yeah, so let's listen to them piece by piece. So I think the first one starts with a melody. So I use the Replica XT here for the delay, and then I use the tremolo to move things around. So if we disable tremolo and the delay, it sounds like this. The samples already have built-in delay, but the Replica just adds to that, and then tremolo obviously just move things around. Don't go too crazy when you're like auto panning things. Don't go like 100%, because that's like, it's just it's very extreme. I never do that. I just go like 40 to 60% max, and I usually go slow with this, just slowly moving it from left to right. I don't go too fast. Just works better, especially when you have like faster elements like the hi-hats in this example. You don't want to have two fast elements going from left to right to confuse your audience. Yeah, so let's keep adding. That's Omnisphere 2 then. So you notice this one is a little bit brighter. Skype Guitar Tutor. No, this is not a trailer track. This is a hip-hop track. Then I have some Balinese gamelan to that. If I zoom in here, you see that I didn't play all the notes. I choose which notes to accentuate depending on what else is going on in the track already. Right, and then another layer of that is the Devastator high plucks, which are amazing sounds. I just love them. Even higher. And then we add a little something else in terms of rhythmical counterpoint or juxtaposition. So if we just listen to the synths, up until this point we were working on the frequency on the vertical distribution of rolls, And now we're working on the horizontal, the rhythmical. Um, Sorry, we work on the frequency distribution first, and now we're working on the rhythmic distribution as well. Let me just play this one so you can hear. So that's the other part of the rhythmic thing, and then something else. Native Instruments Form. It's a great synth. You can throw in a sound and you can make it anything you want. Tommy, automating, which just dynamics. I don't automate anything else except if I'm writing for a very small chamber orchestra, then I will automate sometimes vibrato, but very rarely. Dynamics mostly does it. Yeah. Okay, then we add more layers here. Right. Make sure that the melodic parts of your tracks can be played on the piano with two hands, because you know, if you have to make like a piano reduction or something like that, you should be able to do that. It shouldn't be just all sound design and things like that. So when you're writing like melodic parts, make sure you have that. Okay, and then let me just play something. Just two elements that make this synth part work, which is a custom. I started with the Serum preset World War II air raid siren, and I made it work with some pitch bending and things like that. So listen to this. So it's an air raid siren sound. But if we just listen to these ones, you'll hear what I'm talking about. So these are like their own little synth section within the sixth synth section, and this is like kind of the custom part of the track, or even the synth section that I made. And then I have some chords here as well, so let's just listen to these. I just felt like there was something needed to fill out this mid section of the synth. Okay, so there was a pitch bend here. Okay, so let's have a look at this sound. Talking about synths, might as well spend some minutes on the sound design. This is a custom sound that I made just using this DS saw and triangle waveform, and then using the LFOs to shape it, and just using this custom shape, square wave shape, LFO shape, to modulate the wavetable position and the filter. And then having 15 versions of this and then slightly detuning them. And then also with the tremolo, moving it around the stereo field. You can hear even within this one patch, there's like noise and all these little tidbits that come alive with the modulation. So really, you know, experiment, but make sure that, you know, the modulations are rhythmically relevant, so they're not just random, because it's way more satisfying this way. Um, Actually, yeah, sure. The air raid siren. This is the patch. It's actually a standard patch. I just modulated it here a little bit with the pitch bending and whatnot. So let's listen to that. Yeah, I think I just changed the envelope a little bit to make the rise be rhythmically in tune with my track. So if I just enable the metronome, you'll hear that it fits the tempo. Right, so 2 seconds, just short of 2 seconds, it's where it hits on the beat. Yeah, and then this is the just a custom sound also that I made, and I added some decapitator on. So this is the someone asked earlier about the wavetable shaping, right? So this is a custom shape that I did. I used this Monster 2. The Monster wavetables are fantastic in Serum. Then again, layering up 5 versions of it, detuning it, and then using the LFO1 to move through the wavetable. Right. So it's also rhythmically in tune with the track. Yeah, so just a little tidbit, but when you add just the whole thing, let's just listen to these last couple of parts of the synth. Have to. And this is all the synths. Yeah, and then some effects to that as well. So no percussion version would also work for licensing purposes as well. So if an editor, music editor, or music supervisor would want to use just the percussion or no percussion version, they could, and it stands on its own 2 feet. And if they want to use just the percussion and the bass, they can also do that. It also works. So yeah, let's just listen to this last part of the track again, the whole thing. There we go. And that's it. So yeah, that was about it. Like I said, there's always things to learn. There's always things to improve. I'm not a hip hop musician at all. I never write hip hop, but you can apply your knowledge if you're good in synthesis. You can apply it in so many different areas, um, and no matter what you're writing, if you have a good sense of harmony, you can create chord shapes that work. You know, you have a good sense of melody, you can create melodies that are really memorable. Um, and there are elements to each of those disciplines, if you want to call them like that, where you can, once you grasp the concepts and once you have some exposure to this, various styles and whatnot, you can, employ them in almost any genre. Basically, you internalize the vocabulary of each individual genre as you learn. So, that's why I don't only do trailer music. I do production music mostly because I learn so much. And with every new project, you hear yourself getting better, hopefully. And then, when you listen to your tracks from 1 year ago, you're like, oh my God, that sounds like crap. And you know how you would make them better now. And that's the best feeling. Like there's always, striving for the better. And that's why I love about it. And like you see, there's all sorts of disciplines that you can, everything from harmonic language to melodic sense to rhythmic, sound design. If you're really good in sound design, you can use that in so many genres. So don't limit yourself too much to just a specific type of music. Ruben, how is your composing process? What do you record right first? Depends on the genre. Hip hop, I never write hip hop, but when I did, I started with the beats. Why? Because it's the easiest. Because it's always the hardest thing to start, right? And if you start with something easy, that gets you going much faster. It's always easier to fix something than to create something new. So if you write you come up with a beat and it's kind of crappy, okay, but at least you have something. So what I would often do is I write something, and if it's not that good, I just leave it, and I come back and revisit it like half a day or the next day. And after I had some fresh ears, I immediately hear what needs to be fixed. So that's my process. That's for the hip hop. For the tension underscore, let's reopen up this project again that we had, the second example that we did. It's either, if I'm writing tension underscore, it's either rhythmic elements or the sparse melodic things. And I'll show you an example what I mean. I didn't use my Eurorack, the modular, on this one. No, I didn't. No, I did for a couple of tracks, but just little bits and pieces. Eurorack is such a fantastic world, but you can spend a lot of time on something, and then in the end, you're like, oh, that's not exactly what I want. So, it's always that thing. But here in tension underscore, this is, I think in this case, it was the first thing that I wrote, was this plucky, melodic kind of thing. It's kind of melody, right? And sometimes, melodies will present themselves to you just from either from a preset or from a rhythmic thing that you develop. So in this case, I programmed this rhythm here, and it's just, I played one note, and then, I could have had that, but it's much more interesting to have, you have, if you have like a rhythmic patch or something like that, instead of just having one note, just try playing two notes or three notes and see if you can develop a little melody out of it. Because people often think like, oh, melodies, it has to be this big grandiose thing. Not really. They can be really minimalistic, but if you catch that right mixture of rhythmic and melodic dependency, you'll notice that certain melodies work best with certain rhythms and certain sounds. And then if you take genre into the consideration, then you suddenly have, certain types of melodies. But like I talked about earlier, you have to internalize these things by listening to the genres and try to replicate them, transcribe them in your DAW if you're working with a DAW. If not, just do it on the piano. It also works. And then once I had that melody, I added the harmonic element to it. Once you have like your melodic element and your basic harmonic development, everything else, will pretty much reveal itself to you. You just have to have a good sense of rhythm and know how to incorporate that. That's why, I'm able to like I said, write within just a section where it's like, if I write just a percussion, I'm gonna write the percussion to the melody. That's why we have this. If I just mute the melody and the percussion. They work together because I came with the melody first, and then percussion just kind of like, it's not a random, it's not just a loop, it's not just ostinato or something like that. It is melodic in a sense, if you want to call it like that. So yeah, I usually start with either melodic or harmonic development, and then other other parts kind of come up, like certain melodies or rhythmic parts and things like that. So yeah, that's how I write. Can you make Eurorack-like patches sound close in Serum? Depends. If you, for example, I can give you like a tip. What's very popular in Eurorack, if you will, is this notion of, I'm just gonna go here. Of having the envelope, which is the control of how quickly the sound starts, develops, and finishes or fades out. So if you have the envelope controlling the volume, amplitude, like in this case, right, you can also have this envelope control filter cutoff. So if you have this is what we would call a low pass gate, because at the same time it's controlling the volume and the filter cutoff. And this is very this is a very natural sound, and that's why it's so pleasing to us, because we hear it in nature. Like, for example, if you listen to the rain, you know that if it falls softer, it's quieter but also not as harsh. But if it's falling harder, it's louder and it's also way brighter. And the same thing if you compare it to a piano. If you play the piano softly, it's quieter but it's also darker. And if you slam it harder, it's going to be louder, but also the frequency opens up it brightens up. And this is the concept that you can apply it also with sound design and synth programming. So this is, with the filter controlling the cutoff as well. Envelope controlling the cutoff as well. Right, and this is without, and this is with right. So use that. That's kind of when you're thinking about Eurorack kind of stuff. If you want to do that, use the LFOs. It's all about modulation. Just modulate, automate things all the time, but don't do it too crazy, because then it can get distracting. You always have to guide your listener by hand. You have to make sure that they know that they always feel safe, and you do that by pattern establishment. So when you're writing, either with the piano or with synths or percussion or whatever, don't introduce more than 2 elements at a time, not to disorient your listener. But like every 4 bars or something like that, you can change it up a little bit. But always when you're introducing a new section or a new section of a section, keep something old, introduce something new, and that way you can progress. And don't do just vertical development. Introduce new melodic elements as well. A section, B section, A section, C section, things like that. Because it's so popular to just develop, like have an A section and just build it and build it and build it, but you're just saying the same thing over and over again. You're not saying anything new. It just sounds bigger, but it's not more interesting. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you listen, for example, this track, like how I start and then how I introduce new elements. Now something new, which is this part here. Did you notice that break? It stops here. So stops, and then it's keeping something, introducing something new. Even in the melodic sense, you can introduce a new sound and have it mirror or play off of the original melody, like here. Right, we have this melody here. It's not the exact same thing, but it's kind of in the ballpark. So then this one is just builds up on that. So here I actually introduced 2 new things. One is this build of the melody, and then the harmonic development with the strings, right? What I love doing is going back and forth between major and minor. That really, brings that. So, yeah, Chase MIDI. Funny thing about that, my computer is not too powerful, so if I have that turned on and I'm working on a trailer track, it freezes up every single time I try to play something. So I tend to keep it off. Unless I know I'm working on a smaller project like this. So, but I forgot to turn it on. But you're right. Yeah, turn Chase MIDI on, and if you have problems with playback freezing and stopping because your CPU can't handle it, turn Chase MIDI off. It took me forever to find that out. I had to work with a bunch of trailer tracks, and it took me forever to discover that that was the culprit. Chase MIDI is just a big CPU hog because it has to do these all these calculations. But yeah. Okay. Any more questions on synth percussion stuff or in general, writing, composition, anything like that? Yeah, it's a big CPU. MIDI chase is a big CPU thing, and it took me forever to discover that. Luckily, I did. So I just have to play from the start of the section, then it's fine. As long as it's not too long of a section, it's fine. All right. Just waiting to see if you guys have any more questions. Yeah. I work with two controllers, by the way. This is the one that I mostly use. Is the M Audio Keystation 49E or 49, whatever, Mark II, and then my main keyboard is the Kurzweil PC3X, which I use here, which I mostly use for piano and things like that. I don't use it much. But yeah. I love this keyboard. Also, it's cool because it has 8 faders on the left side, so I can map that to various parameters with the soft synths and whatnot. Next session, I don't know. I might do one in a couple of weeks, and we can cover some other stuff. But I'll do like a, add me on Facebook if we're not connected yet, and I'll ask what you guys want to see, and then we'll take it from there. Probably in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure though, because I have 2 albums to write now in the next month and a half. So, but it's not too much of an effort to set up a live stream. So yeah, we'll do one in the next couple of weeks, I guess. Hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are healthy, staying productive. Use this downtime, if you have a downtime, if you can, to make music, study, transcribe things, learn, and just get better at everything you do. Trailer tracks. Yeah, we can do that next time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have a good one I can show you. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, send me a message either on Facebook or on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't rarely check it. It's just my name, Jure Irbits, everywhere. So stay healthy, guys. Make music. Share your music with me. Hopefully this was useful. Let me know in the comments, and subscribe if you want to, and let me know what kind of videos you would like in the future. And be well. I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.